journals reveal a pattern. There's a set pattern to the behaviour of the people who harassed me. That's a photo of the man, one of them, who actually harassed me. He's still at large at the moment, and that's a story in itself, because what happened there, as you can see, that's the helicopter. He was a mysterious covert agency that he belonged to, and they were seeking a child from me, and that is the constant theme of them, and I won't go into any further details there, but there seem to be these lunatics who were stalking me without oversight on your money, appeared to be in a form of what we could call black ops, BLACKBRIAR, born identity type operation. They were trying to get a child out of me. I'm trying to work for a living. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer with all this, but I know I'm being followed. I know I'm being followed and I know I'm being watched. But what would happen is they cannot predict when the UFO would turn up, according to these journals. They would only harass after the UFO interaction. So they would only hit me with mind control with their delivery systems when the UFO interaction, or after the UFO interactions happen. They could never do it before, and they could never do it during, which means their technology cannot predict. It's not in sync with them. And that is a constant theme within these journals, that these people who were in the UFOs were weaving a pattern of information throughout these journals for me to look at in later years. I didn't know that. I'm going berserk in these journals, wondering what the bloody hell's going on with me, you see. So we do believe, or rather I believe, or I was taught, I was shown, I got to know, and I believe, and it might not be facts, but I do believe, and that opinion could change, that these people have links to NATO and the National Security Agency. NATO is involved quite deeply with the UFO situation. I recommend Richard P. Hall's work on NATO and cattle mutilations. But you would be surprised that that lovely little organisation is involved. And the link to that is tenuous, but it's there. But it did start with me in about 1997, I think, something like that, when I decided to ring NATO HQ in Brussels. And I called them and I asked them about a document called the assessment. And this woman with a French accent picked up the phone. I said, "Do you speak English?" "I certainly do, sir." She spoke English to me. I said, "Do you have a document there called the assessment?" which was NATO's assessment of the UFO situation. She said no. I put the phone down. A few weeks later, we had men up telegraph poles and vans turn up, which I didn't think anything about. But there is a link, because the harassment then started. So you do have what would be known as special study groups within certain organisations within the UK and within NATO and within the NSA that study this subject of UFOs very closely indeed, as we will discover. And what I'm going to do is just play you a clip of me doing a piece for the actor Idris Elba. Does anybody know Idris Elba at all? The actor? Yeah, okay. We did this piece for him. It never got to fruition. It was for a competition, a creative competition. But it sums up. This is a clip of me, and it sums up in words the hell that I've lived through with all this. It just sums it up brilliantly. Now, at first glance, you're going to think I'm going absolutely nuts, which underneath I'm pedalling like hell, like a beautiful swan, and underneath the water I'm pedalling like hell. This is a fine example of it. And of course, I'm trained in acting, so what you're going to see is an improvised piece of me cracking up to camera, but it's good. It's solely, it is as if I'm cracking up.
Global Manchurian BLC, targeting UK citizens since 1950, empower individuals under special access programs above the law.
Yes, so what I did is I gave them this app name, the people who were harassing me and targeting me and making my life a living hell, and you know who you are, even if you sat here tonight, you know who you are, I know who you are. And what was going on, I don't think you are sat in the audience, but you know what I'm saying. They sometimes do come and sit in audiences, or they'll make odd remarks, and that's their thing. It just can't be explained in words, because what you saw there was not funny, even though it was. It wasn't funny at all. That's kind of like the hell that I went through. I'm going to explain what that hell was all about, but I think my actions there to camera just sum up the hell, the mental hell that you go through without words, but with visual. And what we had was that I called them I had a radio show called the Tony Topping Show, and I called them Global Manchurian PLC, or UK PLC, my people who harass me, because they act beyond the law, they are beyond any form of oversight. And of course, the plausible deniability is interesting, because I could probably be counted off to the funny farm because of all this. It works very well for them. The mental health system, as we'll see, works very well for these people to cover their tracks. I was visited by this man. There are covert harassment locations. This one's in the public domain. The second one I'm going to discuss with you, because I haven't discussed that with anyone yet. But I was visited by a pub in my local town of Selby. And these people were aware of my experiences with UFOs since about 1999. What is interesting is that the guy with the moustache will be fully aware of what's going on with me, and what is aggravating is perhaps he knows more than I do about my own experiences, because you're holding a deck of cards and you have no idea the deck of cards you're holding in a very big black game. You've no idea what cards you're holding, but you're holding cards. You're the card player. They can see your hand, you can't. And so what happened is, he was aware of my experiences. He is part of a UFO secret police. There is a secret police that enforces silence and gives people hassle. If any member, an ordinary member of the public, breaches the paradigm and interacts with something not of this world, you're going to get heat. You are going to get heat. That's a dead cert. But he had car keys, he had money, and he wandered into the place. Now what they were doing was they were doing all kinds of disgusting things to me with, we'll just say in simple terms, mind control technology, which is deliverable via various systems from satellites, etc., etc. They were waking me up at all times of the day. He gave reference to the fact that that's what he was doing when I walked past him to go to the toilet. He mentioned something that they had been doing with these delivery systems to me, which was waking me up to the toilet every hour on the hour with this electronic delivery system. And he said, I see he's off to the toilet again, with his colleague. Now, can you imagine, audience, being in a pub and you've had a confidential discussion with maybe your husband or your wife, and a guy you don't even know mentions a few details about it as you walk past him? Do you get the picture now? The sinister kind of connotations of what they're doing, because sinister is what they're all about. I am pleased to say, however, that was in 2000. I'm pleased to say it's now 2014, and that they are completely out of my depth with me, and my experiences have evolved. They have absolutely evolved beyond them. I never thought I'd say that in public, but they have, because they caused me a lot of distress. And well done me, I think, on that one. So, what happened was there was a second harassment location. It was very bizarre, just going back to that one actually. It was very bizarre because what he did is the lady that was with him said, why isn't Tony speaking to us? And he said, I don't know, come on, let's go. But he had the car keys in his hand, he had money, so he's got a bank account, he's got a vehicle, he's active, he's not from the planet Zog, he's certainly not a time traveller, he knew how to order a can of Coke or whatever he was ordering. So he's involved with one of these covert interest groups that study UFOs. The second harassment location was here. And this was also very bizarre because a male and female visited this location, and they had a very distinct look about them. And you have to respect fire, because this man in particular is involved deeply with all this. And he came in and he looked like the singer Rod Stewart. In fact, it was just hilarious. He looked so much like Rod Stewart, it was unbelievable. And these people are meant to be covert ops, deep black, etc., etc. But it's like something out of Monty Bloody Python with them, how not to be seen. They're just blatantly obvious, because when you're as arrogant as they are, and as unaccountable as they are, you can do what you want. And this was bizarre. The woman with him was like somebody with nervous energy, as if she just walked out of a Thibodeau advert. She had this distinctive perm, and they didn't fit in. Even the pub noticed that he looked like Rod Bloody Stewart, and a lot of jokes were passed on that one. And he sat back with his drink, and something in my head said, they're watching you. That's what happened. And I didn't think anything of that, but I thought, they're watching you. They're just watching you, I just know. So what happened next is that I stood outside that door, as you can see in the middle, the entrance to that pub, and I was waiting for my mate to come out with me, and all of a sudden them two joined me outside the door, and the lady in question just turned round, I don't know her from Adam, and just went, see you later, Anthony, in a foreign accent. And it was, yeah, it is, laugh with me, because it's insane. It's absolutely insane, but they're watching, they're observing, they know that I'm having interaction with something that is not of this world, and that's why they're monitoring. And there's another reason why they were monitoring as well, but the reason why at the time was not clear. So these two, so that man and woman was there, and she There's reference to her in the journals from these UFOs, because it would appear that throughout this, the UFOs are just doing nothing. They're just absolutely doing nothing and letting all this crazy shit happen to me. And I can't understand why, and that's apparent in my journals. But the man shown earlier was responsible, the man with the moustache, was responsible for a major invasive mind incident of me in 2001. It's kind of like, and I think that kind of like thing I did to camera just sums up, you get the picture of, it just sums up what they're doing to you. They're sending you insane, they're trying to send you balmy. There's an important reason why they're doing it as well, a very important reason why they're doing it. And I'm awoken at 0400 by a simulation. We'll just say it's a simulation that isn't real, it's lucid dreaming, but it isn't. It's an artificial simulation that they're running. They're testing, they're calibrating. And this simulation was part of what is sinister about it, is that you're relaxed while attacked. So while they're hammering away at you, it's like somebody beating you across the head with an hammer while your body feels relaxed and you're smiling at them, because they've got total neural control. They're neurally monitoring you as they're doing all this. And it was like a Hitchcock-style stabbing to the head. And what this man was doing, and don't ask me how I know it was him, but it was him, who was getting this Hitchcock-style stabbing to the head, and I woke up and I thought that I was going to die. I literally thought that I was going to die from their activities. It was horrific, absolutely horrific. But of course, plausible deniability clicks in, but Britain is more switched on than we would think to this, and people are more switched on than the always insane routine, because I'm sure you'll agree, audience, that there's something going on here. Whether or not, there's something going on. Definitely something going on here. So I was awoken night and day. I was being tracked by these special study group people. I was working a 72-hour week, nights and days, and I was awoken to go to the toilet on a regular basis. There was gunfire, screams, phone calls, overt and covert observation going on, with the ultimate goal to obtain a child. These crazies seem to be obsessed with getting a child from me. I'm a bachelor. I've lived a lot of years. I live a life of enforced celibacy, which is bizarre. But this is what I haven't dated for a while because of this background. It's shocking, I know, but that's what they wanted. They wanted to obtain a child from me, and they would go to any lengths to do so. But it would appear that there was other people watching from the skies above who had their own unique observational take on all this, which little was I to know. So, can you imagine working a 72-hour week, nights and days, with a responsible job and having to cope with all this? Can anybody imagine? Probably beyond a lot of people's comprehension, but that's what happened. And the gunfire and the screams, I was awoken from them night and day. It was horrendous. But it was always after, according to these journals reviewing them, always after interaction with a UFO they would hit. Always. The set pattern seems to be that way. So it was pretty nasty, and we had the phone calls and the overt and covert observation. And the UFOs continued to just silently watch. They were coming in over our house and saying nothing and silently watching, because this presentation is gearing up to something. And what was happening is, it's a tragedy really, because we see the length that they went to give my life a living hell, and the UFOs then appear to just step back and constantly do nothing, but in fact they are observing them. In fact they're observing everything that they're doing. And I feel I can assess from what's happened to me that isn't in the public domain until now, is that I was a go-between acting as a repeater. The UFO interactions have been attempted, the interactions with UFOs have been attempted, but this technology has attempted to disrupt it. They are speaking, these UFOs, the people behind them, to a third party on Earth, possibly similar to the movies you might see of Contact, where John Hurt plays the industrialist, something like that. It's a good guess that that's possibly what's happening, but it somehow involves me and a liaison with them. But they are speaking definitely to a third party, and communications have been disrupted by another party. So you've got a great big game going on that the public don't know about, involving the UFO situation and myself and interaction. I think that the goals were to test mind control on me. I'm going to keep it simple, but I think that's what they were doing. To intercept and gather intelligence about UFOs across the dreamscape, and to obtain a child from me for ulterior motives, which was a constant theme. When I say across the dreamscape, has anybody seen the film Inception? Nobody's seen yeah, you've seen Inception? It is similar, it's a similar scenario to, I call it a dreamscape, they call it a space-time continuum, where interactions are happening at a level kind of like, We have the world of spirit, and we have the world of time and space and dimensions. Somewhere in between all that, these interactions are occurring across the dreamscape. And because the dreamscape is not bound by time as we would know it, the entries in the journals would indicate that they may be speaking to a third party that is not in our time frame. And that is staggering. That is absolutely staggering, but such is their technology that it is a distinct possibility and assessment that that was what was going on. This I have never discussed in public before, so you're getting it first here at St. Anne's. So, I think some further points on high-tech harassment, and we'll lead into what's going on with GCHQ as well, which is very interesting. But I think the ethical line was lost as the military march with the mind-tech revolution continues. I think the ethical line with me was certainly lost, and my thinking was definitely disrupted. It was organised stalking at the highest level, and it's a form of psychoterrorism, and the group concerned do not like this information in the public domain. They're very, very jumpy about this kind of information getting out in public, but I fight on, I fight my corner about what happened to me, and I try and stand for and try and fight back due to what had gone on with me, because it's just not very pleasant. There's no answer to the moral question on what happened to me in terms of what they did to me. It's commonly known, what they were doing to me is commonly known as control effects. They're commonly known as control effects personnel. They try and control behaviour. I can guarantee for a fact that my experiences have evolved in such a way with what's going on out there in the skies above that I'm now completely evolved past them, which causes probably, I would think, a lot of freaky disruption among them, which is what you want. In simple terms, very simple terms, microwave beam can be generated to simulate sound effects in your head. And this technology was directed at me to shut me up, to keep me quiet, to disrupt, to cause all kinds of hell to me. Gunfire, screaming, trying to work the hours that I was working. I eventually cracked up and left my job, which is no surprise, isn't it? But this technology was directed at a small minority, and it is now 75%. And what is very seriously worrying is what happens if they think that the fracking people might deserve a bit of this treatment. Where does it go? Where does the oversight go? There isn't any oversight with all this, and that is actually just very worrying indeed. I think we can draw some further conclusions. I'm maybe repeating myself, but the attacks were part of a covert operation that were happening to me. I assessed based on the view that the guy turning up at the pub with his keys, his money, his car, his vehicle, I assessed that they were possibly from a location. I assessed also that they were running this from a psychotronic station. The psychotronic stations, the Russians know a lot about this. Russian mind researchers know a lot about the term psychotronic station, but you would not hear that in the Western media. But psychotronic station. They are sometimes running, from the research I've done, IBM computers, and they're running uplinks and downlinks to satellite, which they would. It makes sense. It makes sense because I'm targeted by something that's exotic, unusual. They'll want to remotely monitor me. They'll want to see what's going on. That all makes sense with them. But they don't do ethics. They don't do apology. They don't do anything like that. And of course, implants. They will, as we'll see later, definitely an implant going on there with me. And definitely I started getting the fantasist emails and strange emails. That happened recently, actually, where I got an issue with a guy who sent an email to me saying the sort of technology they were using and the fact that the UFO that came in over my house was this, and he worked at such a location where that psychotronic station was coming from. Utter bollocks. Didn't know what he was talking about in the slightest. But that's interesting. Very interesting that I get these kind of emails. One day, somebody will be bold enough within their framework to stand up and be counted on the issue of what's been going on. But these techniques, you've probably not heard of these terms before. These techniques are very handy, especially if you're involved in the activist movement or the truth movement, because they use psychotronic influencing as in psychotechnology. They are also secret, open, combined, and they're also opened and combined, which is what happened to me. Opened and combined surveillance is very good, because it leads to the conclusion that you're mad, that I'm mentally ill. It leads to that conclusion. So the mentally ill individual then turns to the law enforcement people, and then they're then sectioned. It works lovely. And it creates an intentional disruptions to the victims, resulting in mental illness. And what is even more sinister is that the DCM, the manual, the mental health manuals, have been rigged by doctors so that the victims of technology will appear to have mental illness should they present these symptoms. They rigged it. And a fine example of that is the pub where he said what he was actually doing to me with waking me up, etc., etc. Happening in Britain, ladies and gentlemen, with unaccountable individuals. It's an absolute disgrace. So, just to recap, psychic experiences since a child. I've had interactions with UFOs. I am targeted by UFO secret police, which is part of a black operation. And the attempts to disrupt the interaction between me and the UFOs have occurred. We will go into this presentation, we'll go fully into the interaction with them from the skies above. It's fascinating. But the UFOs currently at this stage of the game appear to do nothing. What we're seeing there is one of the UFOs that came in illuminating a TV antenna. We tried to simulate that with car headlights, torches, and we couldn't get the same effect. So there you go. Now I hope the organisers don't mind. You've taken in a lot of information in a short space of time. It is coming up to about 5 to 10 to rob, and it's a bit warm. So I don't know, would you have any objections to having a break off, do you think?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, is that alright? Okay, thank you very much.